Meeting will come to order. This is the August 4th of 2022 meeting of the Apple Valley Park and Recreation Advisory Committee. Welcome, everyone. We always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I invite everyone to stand, face the flag, and recite it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is to approve tonight's agenda. So does anyone have any changes to the agenda as published? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve as published.
I'll motion to approve as published.
Second.
So that's a motion by Hendricks, seconded by Shorey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? None? And then, this is the interesting part of the evening. We have some time for audience participation. So we have 10 minutes scheduled. We can be a little bit loose on that, but it looks like there's several groups here who wish to speak, so please be somewhat brief in your comments. Come up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and we'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, good evening. I'm Jerry Brown, Apple Valley resident. I live at 12795 Durham Way. My rear neighbor is Huntington Park, and I've been there on that park well before its inception. One of my neighbors is former Apple Valley Parks and Rec Director, Randy Johnson. And Randy was a really good neighbor, and he also solicited our input about the park before it was built. And his quote was, "We want the park to be a good neighbor," unquote. So I'm here to provide a little feedback tonight based on the dog park. Originally it was kind of innocuous, but it's changing as people get to know about it. There's more and more action going on there. In most cases, there's good owners and good dogs, but in other cases, there's people that need an opportunity to be able to learn how to control their pets. I've got a lot of short-term recordings, sound recordings based on video from my property, and I'll share those with you in a little bit. But I was referring to the ordinance. I was looking that over. So 901.07, I guess the revision portion of 901.17-Bravo 7 requires the owner or supervisor of a dog shall not permit the dog to dig or excessively bark. So I kind of question about the terminology excessively. So we'll kind of touch on that a little bit. So subjective to me. And then I was in communication with Eric Carlson. And Eric responded, as with many of the activities in our park, there's going to be some noise from activity and use of our parks. We see the occasional dog barking is part of that. So I guess the occasional portion is defined as irregular or infrequent. So I was wondering about the excessive definition pertaining to dogs. So an internet search kind of came up with the AKC, so I got this information from them. Excessive or nuisance dog barking involves a dog repeatedly barking for prolonged periods of time that interfere with neighbors engaging, being able to enjoy their own property. That's from the AKC. So they know a few things about dogs, maybe like Hy-Vee knows a few things about beef. Got to throw a little levity in there. So, I can play just a few things because we have a lot of people here, but get a date here and time. So, the windows and doors are open, and this is kind of what you hear. I've got maybe 120, 130 of these short video clips. I don't have a lot of space for storage on my phone, but this is one example. And this goes on from 5:30 in the morning until about sunset. So it's increased as time's gone on. Okay, I can play more and more, but with all the people here, we'll kind of.
No, I think we get the idea, Jerry.
Yeah. Anyhow, you know, when you leave here today, take 60 steps out or 65 steps out from the front door to the parking lot. And that's about the distance where the dogs are from my house. So it gets very, very noisy there. You know, even with the doors and windows closed, you can hear it in the house. So my concern is it's getting more and more prevalent. And I know that, you know, the identification of Huntington was based on, in part, due to the parking lot. I've seen maybe 2 to 3 vehicles use that lot for dogs. Most of the people are walk-in or our neighbors, you know, from either the east side or west side of Pilot Knob or south of Diamond Path. And then the other part is, you know, it's the financial reverence that we got to be concerned about. And so you just put a gate into the hockey rink, and that works out pretty nice, right? So I understand that. And, you know, I've been a dog owner. I've owned 4 dogs in my lifetime. It's been some years, but, you know, I understand how this goes. But anyway, please consider the neighbors, us, of how this impacts. And I only feel it's going to get more noisier as time goes on. Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you, Jerry. I just,
Okay.
I mean, I want to say, you know, your comments have not fallen on deaf ears, I mean, and there's a number of dog owners here. We understand both sides of the situation. You know, how this thing ordinarily works is we aren't going to decide anything tonight.
Sure.
But at our next meeting, it will certainly be on the agenda.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the committee this evening? No? Oh, yes.
Yes, there's 3 of us.
Okay.
We all have the same issue.
Hello, my name is Diane Greer. I live at 217 Park Lane, which is on Alamagnet Park, and I've lived there for, it'll be 40 years in February.
Okay, and I'm Patsy Messero, and I live at 393 Walnut Lane, and I have been there since '86.
And I'm Mary Claire Wareham. My husband and I have lived at 217 Edgewood Lane since 1971, so almost 50 years. And we back right up to Alamagnet Park. Our backyard is Burnsville.
It's Burnsville, and I'm on the side, so it's park in front of me and woods to the north. So we're here to talk about the change in Alamagnet Park in the 40, 50 years that we've lived there. And Mary's done quite a bit of research, and she'll give you some of the research she's done in written form. But what we're seeing is a lot of change in the woods. What used to be wildflowers,
Berries.
blackberries, and just different natural,
A lot of different diverse plant species.
right,
Gooseberries.
Yeah.
They're gone.
they're gone. And what's left is buckthorn, tons of it. And what we have learned is that this change is probably because of the pressure of the increase of deer that are not being managed on the Apple Valley side. They have been culled on the Burnsville side, but not the Apple Valley side. And I don't know, Mary, if you want to talk since you've.
Well, as I said, we back up right to Burnsville behind us. And I started seeing in Patsy too about 2015, 2017 deer damage in our yards. Before that, we didn't have any of it really. And we started seeing deer eating things that they never ate before. So being that we were so close to Burnsville, I knew that Burnsville did have a deer management program. A neighbor behind me was in contact with Caleb Ashling. So I also got in contact with Caleb and most recently got their deer management program. And it's really interesting. From that, we learned that when deer overpopulate an area, they do start eating species that they never ate before. And so it causes a decline in the different species, and then it even affects the songbirds, because then the trees and the shrubs aren't there. So we would really like Apple Valley to start a deer management program. And to my surprise also, there's like almost 20 other communities around us that do have them. And so we need one. And so we're here to say, please, do something, not only for the sake of the damage that we're having in our yards, but for the health of Alameda Park. And so I guess, anything else? I have a letter here, they're on my chair, I'll come back and get those.
No, I would just add that I agree with that. Having lived up there as long as I did, we used to have gardens, and I had perennials out and all kinds of flowers. The deer literally never came up to the yards at all. We might see one around 2, 3 in the morning in the road, but that would be about it. But now they are there all the time and in number. They're having their fawns in our backyards. And kind of hunkering down there, I had an injured deer and her fawn kind of take residence in my yard this winter. I love the deer, but they are very, very destructive.
Right.
And they're coming more and more and more.
You know, my wife, just kind of anecdotally, I don't live too far from you, and my wife cannot, have a garden
No,
because of the
Yeah.
deer cruising through every night.
yeah,
And that's a change.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Huge.
like that before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's testament, we've been there a long time.
This is something that, of course, we'll need to, this committee by itself would have to interface with with the city's natural resource director and with some other, more knowledgeable people than us. But again, we appreciate your comments, and
I know that Burnsville will be culling deer in their little southeast section unit this fall.
yeah.
And we did talk with Jessica Schwam, and she said that last fall, there was some conversation with Burnsville that we might collaborate with them, and for some reason it didn't happen. I don't know what happened, but again, if we could urge us to, Apple Valley side to take part in that culling program. They're scheduled to take out about, I think, between 37 to 40 deer.
Oh,
The
boy.
DNR has a level,
Mhm.
has a number per habitat, and so they're planning to take out quite I have my letters, I'll bring them, and if you could maybe make copies for anybody else.
I may give those to the city staff.
Okay, I've got 4.
Thank you, ladies. We'll leave this with us.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, anyone else care to address the committee? Moderator, is there anyone on the phone who wishes to address the committee?
Mr. Chair, there is no one on the call.
Okay, so hearing that, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the April meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to go through them, and are there any corrections?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for April 2022.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Hamel, and a second by Lisa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. So now we come to agenda item 5A, actually, the North Creek Greenway Natural Resource Management Plan, draft review. And
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'll do a quick introduction for you. So this evening, we have Christian Klatt from Dakota County here, and he's going to quickly walk through a PowerPoint slide presentation related to the natural resource management, draft natural resource management plan that's being worked on for the North Creek Regional Greenway. For the committee's reference, and for those that may be watching or listening at home, the North Creek Regional Greenway runs through Apple Valley, kind of starts on the north end around the zoo, runs through the heart of Apple Valley. It's not complete through the city of Apple Valley, but we are working with Dakota County to complete the trail. And it runs south through Lakeville and then ultimately into Farmington. So once it's complete, someone will be able to take it from the north, from the zoo, all the way into Farmington or vice versa. So part of that includes making sure that we're taking care of our natural resources within the corridor of the Greenway. And so that's the plan that Christian's going to go over with us this evening. We've been working, from a staff perspective, we've been working with the county and other communities that have the North Creek Regional Greenway in its boundaries. And so I'll turn it over to Christian at this point.
All right. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm a natural resource specialist with Dakota County, Chris Klatt, and my focus is to bring this Greenway Natural Resource Management Plan for your review tonight. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Greenway corridor. As Eric explained, I'll go into a little bit more detail about the alignment of the trail through the city of Apple Valley. I'll talk a little bit about how the county plans to do a cost share program with landowner partners, city partners, to implement some of the natural resource management activities that are mentioned in the plan here. And I'll talk a little bit about the project engagement and timeline that we've had for this project, and I'd love to hear any questions that you might have at the end of my presentation. The county Greenway system is planned to eventually encompass about 200 miles of regional bike trails that link up various portions of the county. And while this is an endeavor not only for an alternative for transportation and healthy communities, it's also an opportunity for us to connect our core habitat areas for other than human life forms, so that we can connect those core habitat areas with additional habitat plantings along the greenways that contribute to pollinator habitat, such as wildflowers and prairie plantings. And so we currently only have about 60 miles of these trails implemented today, but the North Creek Greenway Trail is a large part of that. We did a study for the Natural Resource Management Plan in conjunction with the Lake Marion Greenway shown on this map. However, I'll be speaking mostly to the North Creek Greenway on the east side of this line here. So the North Creek Greenway is about 14 miles when completed, and the area that we originally scoped for this plan encompassed about 1,469 acres of public lands that we considered. And so this includes city parks, the Minnesota Zoo property, and school district lands within and adjacent to the trail. And through that, then not all of those areas are suitable for a native restoration. I'm not trying to suggest that, but what they do identify are areas that we could potentially add native plantings in certain areas so as to increase the potential for natural resource improvements in the corridor. We identified a total of $1.7 million in worth of projects, and I wanted to indicate that the red text in this slide is our changes that were made from the original draft of the plan after our 60-day review period in April and May, and we're now going to be returning back to the county board in September with this plan. This was, as Eric mentioned, was worked in conjunction with city staff and other city members and landowner partners. And I wanted to focus in particularly tonight on the parklands within City of Apple Valley that will be affected, such as Cobblestone, Quarry Point Park, and areas along Johnny Cake Ridge Road and McAndrews. So with that, if I start with the southern part of the boundary, just north of 46 as the trail moves under the underpass of County Road 46, it first encounters the Cobblestone Lake Park. And while we do currently have native plantings along this park, and it's a great place for recreation, and there's opportunities for additional native prairie enhancements, add additional wildflowers in these planting areas. And there's also potential to add native emergent plants within the lake itself that would potentially be of more interest to waterfowl. In Quarry Point Park, there's opportunities, especially on some of the steeper slopes, to reduce the maintenance costs of mowing those areas and potentially have low mow fescues that would not require as much maintenance, or potentially even going as far as planting a native prairie there that doesn't need to be mowed at all. And those underutilized turf areas could be planted with native wildflowers, such as the aster shown in this picture. And this doesn't mean it's maintenance-free. Of course, there's ongoing management that needs to be done to ensure that those are weed-free and don't succeed into trees and such. As the trail moves northward, we go past the Johnny Cake Ridge Parks into the current trail that currently exists along Johnny Cake Ridge Road. And there are some stormwater features and native plantings that are currently in existence there. And the county has just recently taken over the maintenance of those areas, so you'll see some improvements there shortly. And then as the trail moves towards McAndrews, there's a brief connection to Finley Park before it goes across the bridge over to the zoo. We have seen rusty patch bumblebee in our surveys at the zoo and in Lebanon Hills Regional Park, so there is a documented observation of federally endangered pollinator species in this corridor habitat. So we know that improving the pollinator habitat in this area will result in additional wildlife benefits. And additionally, because of its proximity to the Greenway, there are opportunities to do natural resource management activities in Moeller Park on the east side of Johnny Cake Ridge Road, such as removing invasive shrubs, buckthorn and honeysuckles, and managing garlic mustard in the understory. Additionally, in Finlay Park, where the trail just briefly passes adjacent to it, there are opportunities there as well. And I know there are some neighbors that might be concerned about screening losses when we remove buckthorn. And so I would propose, in this plan, we propose that we would replace those with native shrubs that would have a better benefit to the forest. We are redoing the McAndrews planting starting this year, so you'll see a change in that area soon. Well, as you perused through the plan, you might have noticed that a lot of the natural resource recommendations that we make are highly detailed, and they have a cost estimate associated with them. And as I mentioned, this adds up to $1.7 million. Well, you know, these projects do cost money, but the county is willing to help. And we would identify grant programs, typically that are funded by the state, in order to pursue these projects in partnership with the city. And the way the county has approached this cost share program is through the concept of a Greenway corridor. We have 3 different categories. Those are urban habitats, which are 100-foot wide on a trail center line, to a suburban habitat where we increase that to 200 feet wide, to a rural habitat where we can go up to 300 feet wide, or at least 300 feet wide in areas where those regions completely are encompassed by a park or a conservation area. And with those definitions, we then, the county is committed to not only maintaining native plantings that already occur in those Greenway corridor buffer areas, but in pursuing additional projects, when we apply for grant funding, the county is willing to pay for half of the match associated with a grant application. So for example, in the project I identified earlier here as an example of a $103,000 restoration project, if the county and the city were to both split the match cost at 20% and both bring 10% of the funding to that program, then the grant would pay the remaining 80% of that project. So just to give you an update as to where we stand with this now, in 2021, we worked with Stantec and developed the recommendations and worked with the city on those plans. And we finished the 60-day review period, but we're interested in additional comments from you to determine if there are any additional changes you'd like to see in this plan before we can go forward to the Planning Commission at the county on August 25th. That's a mistake on the slide. So at the third week of August, we will be returning to the Planning Commission, and then we will be hoping to get a plan adoption from the county board in September. So with that, I'd love to hear any questions you might have about the plan.
Well, there's a lot of information here, Christian. I mean, I'm sure everyone has several questions. I'm not quite sure where to start myself. Does anybody have any?
I actually have a question for Mike. Would these efforts put a relief on your efforts and your team?
Well, if I understand correctly, I think part of this connection portion of it is going to be a collaboration with the county.
Right.
And as soon as that gets completed, I think most of the share will go towards the county. So it will help on our side of the efforts as far as some of the maintenance goes. But I think that some of the direction with the habitat is a good direction to go and will help on the maintenance side of it for, you know, our department itself.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay, thanks. I think you did a great job, and the presentation was great. I mean, yeah, it covers a lot.
So under Moeller Park, the trail is not going to go through Moeller Park, is that correct?
That's correct. It will stay on the west side of Johnny Cake Bridge Road.
Okay.
And the same with Hagemeister.
Correct.
And getting back to the Moeller Park, it looks like there's a lot of restoration or improvements that are not right on the Greenway. I mean, you go, hey, it touches the Greenway, we can keep going, or what's the concept there? How does that decision come about?
Well, so it's likely that all the restoration areas within Moeller Park would probably be outside of that 200-foot wide Greenway corridor. So the county would probably not be contributing to ongoing maintenance. But we do have an interest in intact habitat along the Greenway in the parks that lie within the Greenway. So we would be willing to contribute the half cost share for the match to get a grant funding for that project.
So you said something pretty important there. And what I think that this is really important, and that we're managing our lands and restoring where we can, obviously. But what about that maintenance? Because again, you know, getting it all set up and getting it going is great and restored, but that ongoing maintenance piece of it is critical so that we can continue, that we don't have to do this every so many years.
Absolutely, and that's where the Greenway corridor as established is kind of our definition for how the county can justify continuing to do natural resource management maintenance on non-county lands. And so that's where I've illustrated that in this picture, but also in this matrix, which the orange middle column here, the 100 to 300 foot wide Greenway corridor, something that the county is willing to maintain. Outside that corridor, we recognize the value that natural resource restoration provides, and there could be other opportunities with our land conservation program to obtain restoration dollars and potentially maintenance there. But again, that's something that is outside of our Parks Department and would have to be with another entity within our county. But as far as the Greenway corridors are established, we can provide maintenance over those 200-foot wide corridors in a suburban context.
Do you have any other examples that are current Greenway corridors that are doing some of this cost sharing in either in Dakota County or in the metro area?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, our first Greenway collaborative project, Greenway collaborative in the sense of natural resource management projects, is occurring in the city of West St. Paul and on School District 197 lands currently along our river-to-river Greenway. So we developed our river-to-river Greenway natural resource management plan in 2019. It was approved by the board in 2020, and now we are working with Great River Greening, who is kind of our restoration contractor, who is working with both the school district and the city independently, and then we're providing that 50% cost share match, and then we're committed to ongoing maintenance of all the restorations that are along that 200-foot wide stretch on the trail. And that's happening in Garlow and Marthaler Park in West St. Paul.
You mentioned something about redoing the vegetation on McAndrews later this year, did you say? What's that all about, Christian?
Well, the county does have a high standard for, if you've ever visited Lebanon Hills or some of our other regional parks, we do want to see a high quality native planting. And that project was done a few years in the past before Natural Resources Program really took on this project along the greenways. And so what we're interested in seeing there is a native planting that's a little bit more up to the standards that we see in some of our other parks. And so our Natural Resources Program determined that that's worth the money from the county to reinvest and do that over again and have a quality planting take its place.
Just by the zoo, right? Is that the?
Across from, yeah, on the southern side of McAndrews, across from the zoo. And then some of the zoo entrance plantings right at the base of the bridge.
And that's going to be this year yet?
Yeah, we'll be starting the site preparation this year.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, questions, comments?
Can you go back to the Johnny Cake Ridge Road map and explain how the Greenway gets from Quarry up to Johnny Cake? I can't quite follow the green line. I'm green-red colorblind.
Sure, so we've gotten, yeah, unfortunately the laser pointer's red here, but if we can follow Cobblestone Lake here, it goes just north of Regatta Park, and this is a trail that is not yet established, but through this current quarry area, there'll eventually be a trail that goes under County Road 42. And then we're currently working with Menards and Magellan Pipeline to have a trail go in between their properties, and then it will eventually come through some of this area that's currently being developed through the Johnny Cake Ridge Parks.
Okay.
And again, that trail is dotted at this point, but it's not an official greenway
And
at this point.
as they develop that trail, you'll be involved in part of that development of that trail to include this restoration or this native natural resource areas?
Yeah, when appropriate, if there are areas that don't have utility as a turf area for sporting events and whatnot, that's where my recommendation might be to include pollinator-friendly plantings along the corridor.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say, Christian, that there will be plantings along Johnny Cake Ridge Road?
There currently is. So the trail, as it currently exists, north of 140th Street, sorry, there's my pointer. Oh, it's running out of batteries, I think. North of 140th Street up to McAndrews, the trail is mostly mowed, but there are some stormwater features and some areas where the shoulder gets wider that are intentionally planted as native plantings.
Oh.
On the Quarry Point Park slide, you have steeper slopes, potential for future pollinator plantings. Are those future plantings not included in this plan at this time? Is that just an area you've highlighted, or is that actually part of the plan?
So I wanted to be a little bit more general about the increase in funding that was identified after we had the 60-day review period, and those red numbers I came up with were higher than what we originally slotted because we wanted to identify potential areas that weren't determinate at this point that we could potentially pursue in the future. So that would probably be the lowest hanging fruit for something like that.
Okay.
I guess one more question, or just a thought. I think that it would be really wonderful if is there any plans to do any signage or to let people know that these are natural pollinator and sites and things like that, kind of a little bit of that education and awareness for people along the way? Is that a part of this as well, or?
Well, we didn't identify that in this plan. That I agree completely that that's very critical and especially for the public's understanding what we're trying to do here, and it might take some time for this planting idea to kind of take root. So we do have a outdoor education program and they are an interpretive program within our parks unit that does do signage along our greenways, and so we'll be working with them for future projects to implement signage along the trail that points at these
So when you say that signage is not currently planned, does that also include the demonstration area on that slide? Because if it's just left unsigned, they might think we're just not mowing there, right? So like at least in the demonstration areas, will there be some sign component there, or?
Well, again, that's something that we could, at the onset of a project, there's a process. We'll identify the funding source, we'll have a joint powers agreement, and all these elements that include signage can be brought to the table at that point. While this was focused on natural resources, again, it's hard to completely separate that element from it. So that's where I would be working in collaboration with my colleagues to ensure that we would have some identification of those.
I'm just happy to get rid of Buckthorn.
Agreed.
Christian, are you looking for any action on the part of the committee, or this was just purely informational?
This is informational tonight. If you do have comments, you can get in touch with me personally, and I'll still be willing to incorporate edits to the draft before we bring it to the Planning Commission. And so I'm just happy to tell you a little bit about our program and how we're going to be working in collaboration with the city for future partnerships. And thank you again for your time tonight.
Well, thank you. Good job.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a next agenda item here, North Creek Greenway Trail. What's that all about, Eric?
Right, Mr. Chair, members of the Parks Committee. Keeping along the theme of the North Creek Regional Greenway, Brandon Anderson, the city's engineer, is here this evening. You may recall that we are in cooperation with Dakota County. We are working on the construction and connection of some small projects on the south side of town through Cobblestone, Quarry Park, etc. With all of the development that's happened in the north of Quarry Park, where Texas Roadhouse and the Byerleys and whatnot is going to be, there's a piece of property along the Greenway, or along the future Greenway, that's been designated as a place where we're going to enhance some of the landscaping and some of the features in that. And so Brandon wants to kind of go over some of the concepts that have been developed. Would like to get your feedback on what you like about the concepts, what you may not like about the concepts. And like we're doing with the Parks referendum process, you may like a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one, and give us a little bit of feedback on what you like so that we can go back and massage what you're looking at this evening, ultimately bring it to the Planning Commission, the City Council, because Brandon needs to be able to tell the developer how to grade the site. And so that's what he's up to this evening. And so I will turn it over to Brandon at this point.
Mr. Chair and committee members, Brandon Anderson, city engineer with the City of Apple Valley. This is actually a nice segue from Christian's presentation. We do work pretty collaboratively with Dakota County on all of the Greenway pieces. The city's portion of the Dakota County Greenway is typically we have an agreement with them where they pay for the construction of the Greenway, all the elements that Christian described. And the city usually leads the construction process because really we're kind of the landowner and know the intricacies of our city residents and businesses. So Eric did a quick intro on this. What we're looking for tonight is input from the committee on review of some concepts of the gathering space specifically and amenities that we will be incorporating at a specific location on the North Creek Greenway, which is just north, button's fast. So Christian kind of covered really big picture Greenway. I'm narrowing it down to a much smaller section. As Eric alluded to, we are in the process of developing design documents for bidding for the spring of 2023 to finish connecting the Greenway. There was a question about the routing. We're starting to put that routing together and get it implemented. That is the goal. The implementation plan that we have with the county right now is to go from Cobblestone Lake Parkway. There's a existing tunnel that connects to Lakeville, connect up Dutton Lane to Cobblestone Lake Drive. There's going to be some maintenance work of the dual track trail along the south side of Cobblestone Lake. We are going to include wayfinding. We are going to incorporate the county's Greenway standards, so it doesn't look like a city trail. It's actually going to be themed with the city, with what we described as the county standards for a Greenway. It's going to have that feel.
And then it's gonna connect at Elmhurst, go by the CDA and the Springs, it's called, development, go under the tunnel at Pilot Knob Road, and then there'll be some trail and some of the amenities that Christian mentioned with different things through Quarry Point Park to get some, get that Greenway traffic through there and incorporate it into how the Quarry Point Park is used. And then if you've been down there recently, with all the new development, Pilot Knob is on the one side of the screen, 157th on the south, 155th is now built to the north. The area on the far west side of this exhibit is all stormwater basins. We've incorporated the seed mixes and pollinator mixes into that stormwater amenity that also has the North Creek Greenway winding S-shaped through the western side of the retail development. As part of that retail development agreement, the developer contributed funds, the county contributed funds, the city has some match, and a second developer also had some contribution to grade the site and have it ready for creation of, there's a little circle there shown in that outline, and I'll get it a much better zoom on the next slide, to incorporate some amenity features that kind of blended the connection to the businesses, connection to the Greenway, and connection to city parks. Some of the concepts, and this is just, instead of a black and white engineered type drawing, this shows what that space is looking like. The multi-celled stormwater ponds, unfortunately, it hasn't filled up quite yet, just due to 2 years of drought and the fact that we just don't have impervious surface to it yet. And these are designed to accommodate, 40 plus acres of developed retail. So it's gonna, it'll change and it'll fill up, but it does take time. And we're really just getting the seeding established. It takes several years for that seeding to come out like the plan that you just shown. It really does take some maintenance. And we're in the second and third year of that maintenance plan. So we did do some assessments and the diversity is starting to show up, and we're happy with that. But we're at the next phase where we want to start getting trails, the bridge in, and getting it connected up before this area continues to develop further. So what we're seeking input on is that little space, and the pointer doesn't show up very well, that little space that we're calling the amenity area that's highlighted right there. There's kind of an S-curve right next to the bridge. It's graded out, kind of rough graded right now. And Karen Luger with SEH is my landscape architect. She put together various concepts that we had some discussions with Dakota County, city staff. We did have some public neighborhood meetings last fall and gathered some feedback, but now we're here to let her kind of go into details of those amenities and then let you be able to, as Eric mentioned, maybe pick and choose or just go with one as a whole. So, Karen, I'll let Karen.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm Karen Luger. I'm going to present the 4 concepts for this gathering space by the Orchard Place, in which we've called Trail Bridge site. So the one thing that these 4 concepts have in common is that they do integrate a bike trail amenity node that would meet the Dakota County standards. So it has typical features of a bike fixing station, bike loops, maybe a water fountain, signage, benches and waste receptacles. So all 4 concepts show that. It's just how it is integrated into the design may vary with each concept. And some of the concepts have more programming, some have less, and some have a different focus up above as opposed to down by the trail. So this first concept is probably the most, I would say, programmed. It has an amphitheater, a lawn amphitheater with a flexible performance area, a promenade with pergola seating. It has terrace with cafe seating and tables, maybe a small play lot, and then an overlook structure at a stormwater pond. And all of these concepts also have, landscaping, shade trees, and low maintenance planting beds. So this is the first concept, and these are really working drawings. And again, they can be adjusted depending on what the direction we get today from the committee. And so you can see there's a lot going on here. The trail runs up kind of on the south side, and then you have the amphitheater, which is cut into the hillside naturally. And this is really, could be a very informal amphitheater. It doesn't need to be something like Kelly Park where you have big events. This, I think, is the intention is to be just a little looser, so people can sit on the hillside. There could be a concrete seat wall at the base, just a lawn area that would be mown and then framed with the native plantings around this entire area. So this is the first concept, and again, it does show a structured overlook that might be on the other side of the trail into the pond, similar to what is at Spring Lake Trail. The second concept, this one has less programming. It has a large circular gathering area in the middle with pergolas for shade and bench seating. You could have a center planter with weathering steel raised planting beds, and maybe it would have an art feature as a focal point. This also has more of a whimsical treatment with a formalized switchback walkway up to the retail development area. Again, kind of an artful way to kind of treat that connection with some landscaping. And then the typical landscaping and then Greenway trail bike amenity node. So this is that piece. So the bike node is still separate from the gathering area, and then you can see the switchback up to the retail development area. The third concept, this one actually integrates the bike node with the gathering space. It's a little less, again, less programming. And so we have the gathering space and the bike node together. An more informal lawn amphitheater, maybe it would just be a graded lawn with some limestone block benches placed throughout. So very, very loose and informal, but also maybe incorporating some pergola structures to kind of give it some dimension and shade. And the final concept, this one is a little different. This one focuses on the retail development. It has more of the gathering space up above, an upper terrace. So it would involve a lot more infrastructure with a retaining wall, railings, stairway connection, depending on where it would connect in with the retail development. Again, formal like cafes, tables, and bench seating for people using the retail area, grabbing lunch and a sandwich and coming over. Some trail amenities, and then there's a pathway to go down to the Greenway Trail, and there would be a lower terrace for small gathering for the trail amenity node there with the typical features. And then this one actually shows a connection to the north. The other three did not, but that could also be worked in. This is going to be a future extension just directly to the north on the east side of the stormwater pond. So as you can see, this is a little more, has a little more infrastructure involved to make the grades work. And this does not have an amphitheater. So I guess we are looking for direction, input. Again, these are, ideas that have just been explored based on feedback from different stakeholders, and we've met with some Dakota County project team members, and we've got preliminary feedback. So if there's anything that and it's a lot of information to throw at you all at once, but if there's something that you feel is really important, then please share with us today.
When I first looked at this, my first thought was, why amphitheaters? I mean, given where this is located and the people that would be using this area, I mean, it's fine, but I just don't see it being that much of being used. I mean, you can do it. It's not going to look bad, but if it's meant to be some sort of functional amphitheater, I don't know who would be using it. I mean, you're going to have the retail and the restaurant area to the east. I could see people, taking a lunch and maybe sitting here and eating it. But as far as an amphitheater, I would think that would be kind of in my opinion, a bit of a waste. I like
can
some of the other
actually
concepts
speak to
better.
Have you been to Whitetail Woods, one of Dakota County's parks?
Yep.
There is, I would rather use the term amphitheater loosely, that's the term. They have a bowl there where this has a similar theme to Whitetail Woods. With a lot of the input we had from Dakota County was trying to make sure the Greenway felt as a continuous greenway and incorporate into the other parks and systems. And the natural terrain, there's about 10 feet of relief from the retail area to the trail. There is a bridge, and it really sits into kind of some slope area, and that was really the only reason. It
Yeah,
just fits into this.
topographically, yeah, it can fit very well. I'm just, is it something that would be used, or would it be better going a different direction?
I had a similar initial reaction when I saw the two plans with the amphitheater. I understand it may make sense with the lay of the land, but I wondered how much it would be used for anything more than just sitting and eating. And if that's the main use, then we could design more purposeful sitting and eating areas.
Better option, yeah.
Yeah.
Taking a look at these, I've lived all over, and this would be some great plans if we lived in Kansas City. We live in Minnesota. A lot of these plans are warmer activities like eating outdoors is a warmer activity. I think having a sledding hill for these folks that live around that area, I think that would be a much better use of that area. Maybe incorporate a loose amphitheater into a sledding hill, possibly something like that. But I think we're looking at putting some dollars into some structures that just aren't going to be used more than 4 or 5 months out of the year, and we, as Minnesotans, we like to do this, and I've seen a lot of plans come through that, yeah, these are great for 4 months out of the year, but we forget the rest of the year, and I think we need to remember that.
Yeah, I don't, does Dakota, are the trails plowed in the wintertime? Yeah. So that would be a potential conflict coming down onto the trail, sledding.
It's a very small space.
Okay.
The space was dedicated as part of the development process. I happened to design the sledding hill at Whitetail. And it's heavily used, and the biggest feedback I've received over the years is they need to be big. There's some berming, there's some safety, they added lighting, the walkway to separate the sledders. This doesn't have that space. Wonderful concept, extremely popular, absolutely a need somewhere in Apple Valley, but maybe this space, you're gonna go down the hill and you'll just, as soon as you hit the sled, you're already.
Well, we don't want that either.
And there's some
I'm
interaction
just saying
with-
something maybe.
And there's some interaction
Some
with
winter.
one of the main goals of the Greenway is connecting Farmington to Egan and everything in between and getting that connectivity better. And having a place that you can stop at, whether it's Quarry Point Park or the retail, whatever, fully developed out here. And, no, your comment.
If that's the goal, this matches it perfectly then.
What is the funding source? Is this all part of the county matching?
No, this one was, so we have a development agreement with the 2 developers that developed Orchard Place. They contributed significant funds. The county is contributing significant funds, and we have a small match to go with it.
Now, have those developers communicated with those retail places that, hey, we're gonna have some seating over here? Because if that's the case, then we need to.
I will say the development side was pushing more for something that suited attracting the seating and benefit there. I think some of the goal that we heard from other stakeholders in the county was incorporate this more into the Greenway, and then when development catches up, the development can incorporate that into the development without expending the public funds. So we've been trying to steer it more towards making this, there is a bridge, one of the things with the space is there's a lot of housing going in. This is really pretty far from anything until this develops. I wish the pointer was brighter. You got development directly adjacent to Pilot Knob. You have Lund's Byerly's, you have all the restaurants. Things are starting to progress. You do have Quarry Point Park, it's heavily programmed, Mike and Eric get all the field play. Now you have, a nice outlet to something passive, and then you've got connectivity with homes. The bridge is an element that can supplement maybe some of the design pieces, because people are gonna stand on an overpass and look out. You're gonna see the native flowers, some stone, and that is a nice, quote, overlook, as part of it already. So it is kind of meant in an area that you've got a tunnel under 157th, you're gonna have future tunnels under 155th, and future Johnny Cake as it extends north before it goes north. So this is really one of the spots that creates kind of a passive, quiet setting in a developed out area.
When I went through the packet, I think I was just immediately drawn to option 2, kind of the shady gathering space, without much infrastructure around it. Maybe, you know, that could be used as a place for your lunch, or, you know, if you're biking, you can just stop and rest off on the side, maybe have a water fountain there or something like that.
It is a harsh environment. It's a former gravel pit. Getting natives and getting something established around these stormwater ponds is a challenge. It isn't already wooded or have some of the other natural features. This is a difficult site to bring up, and some shade, water, those things we felt were very important.
Yeah.
Because of the location.
I liked in particular, I like the concept of the overlook. I know that you said people will stop on the bridge and look, but I thought that overlook was a nice little, you know, if this is designed to be a resting place, like if you're stopping to grab lunch or you rode your bike and you're taking a breather, it'd be nice to not be clogging up the bridge to actually move along the trail. So having a separate space there, I think, would be.
Some of the feedback we received on other Greenway segments we're connecting is families with smaller children can't go long distances without having the children have a little place to stop. They're not able to bike 6 miles continuous. So that was some feedback we received.
So, in developing this area, several years ago, we had a park that we put in, and because of grading issues, it took quite some time to develop that park, and we had some of the residents around that park saying, hey, you promised us to park here, and there's nothing there. What kind of time frame are we looking at to develop whatever concept that we put
So
in?
we're under design. Our goal is to bid in the winter of 2022-23 and have the segment from County Road 46 through Cobblestone Lake connected to the new 155th.
Okay.
Now, the amenity space may be a 2-part, you know, depending on the level of design. We have funds established. We have an agreement, a development agreement that they're kind of pushing us. What part of their obligation was to have this ready for us to build along with the funds, and they want to move it along, which is good. It's keeping it moving. So the timing is here. We're pushing forward and would like to see loop trails around the stormwater amenities, the housing's filling in, the retail's filling in, and we want to have it in place before some of that, because it's harder to do
After.
infill after. So we're on track. Plus, some of the comments that the county made about maintenance, Eric and Mike would love to have full connection so the county has the full maintenance of the corridor, which is one of the big advantages to getting this connected, is they take over the maintenance, which is a key part of some of the features.
Could I see the zigzag plan? Which one is that?
That's 2.
2, right?
2.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I agree with Brent. I like 2 the best, except for the switchback. I kind of like the concept where we had in one of these other ones a little easier path. I think on concept 4, it's a little more snaky and not switchbacky. Just if you're riding your bikes, you know, it's a little easier to do the. You know.
But is the switchback, is that part of the bike trail?
No, but people are riding their bikes on the trail, and if they want to get up to the retail and ride their bikes up there, or
Get a sandwich.
vice versa, they park in the parking lot
We'll
up.
need some accessibility ADA accessibility to the retail. We do want to be connected to the retail. We do want the Greenway to be continuous. One of the key elements to the Greenway is not stopping and having all these breaks. It's the Greenway. And then just when you start getting a little higher pedestrian traffic and bicycle traffic on the Greenway, you do have all these little spurs and connectors are nice. Part of it was for ADA because there's such a grade differential, you're not able to. And we could play with configurations of that too as you incorporate different pieces.
Well, and I think you could tie it in, like, things could shift a little bit, so you tie in even that future north connection with that, snaking that up there.
I like having the art piece there, and I see that it looks like there's lots of benches, and Brent likes benches.
I like benches.
He likes benches a lot.
I was gonna say, I like the concept of using the limestone block for seating, the informal seating. I think that that's a nice way to build seating that adds to the native, if you're trying to make it look like the Greenway and focus on that, I like that.
So the picture here is actually what's built other than the bridge. We have incorporated natural stone into the slopes, into the wildflowers. We were gonna add plantings as part of the construction, but we are waiting. Whitetail Woods has incorporated the native stones similar into the same theme because that's what the natural environment here is. So that's kind of part of what we're showing as well.
I do think that, again, having a place that people can stop and to rest and with their families, and so, I think benches are great and making sure it's shaded. I think that it would be nice if they had a little bit more of you could have a picnic and like little, I don't know if these are more like little mini gazebos type, sections here, that you can have multiple little things like that. I think is really great to have different families. So nothing big and huge, but a lot of, because I think you're right, the shade is going to be a premium out there on this trail in this area and for quite a while, and that will make it attractive for people to stop and maybe wander up and check out the retail. So
Exactly.
So, but I do like minimal, less programming in it, because my concern is that, a lot of times with the builders and this great opportunity, we program a lot and then it becomes a maintenance challenge of what we're seeing and dealing with in other places. So, and to your point, as retail builds out, and that I think it's concept 4, where it's kind of that overlook and it's connecting to cafe seating and things like that. From what I'm hearing you say, that could still come as they develop out, and we could leave that open for future. We don't have to make that decision now.
Let them ride the check.
Yes.
If we create a space that's appealing to certain restaurants and others, they will put that there.
Yeah.
But we just have to create the space to make them want it.
Yeah. So I don't feel like we have to do that now. I guess, so concept 4 is,
So can I ask a quick question on the south side of Cobblestone? You have 2 trails right now, pedestrian and bike. Is there going to be a third trail then? So are you going to combine those 2 trails that are currently there? Or what?
The dual track will remain.
Okay.
One of the challenges we have with that part of Cobblestone,
Yep.
people don't know how to get to the tunnel. They don't know how to get to East Lake Elementary because that's where all the kids go to school for elementary. There's no grade separation. There's some pretty, from Cobblestone Lake Parkway to the trail, there's a retaining wall and no way for you to really continuously use the trail. We are going to separate that and make it more free-flowing and kind of create a nice little amenity space there. And tie that, it's got some intersection changes that we have to do, but the trail will still be dual track. It'll be signed better. We're looking at lighting, we're looking at better crosswalks, better markings as it gets you to the tunnel under 46.
Okay.
That's a key element to that one, is just getting people to recognize that you can go down Dutton Lane and go under 46 and you're all the way on a Greenway trail that takes you to Farmington that's fully developed right now.
Hey, Brendan, as I look at these 4 concepts, trying to decide which brings the most value to the city. And from my viewpoint, We look at the overlook structure is going to be nice. We've talked about that. The public art is something unique that we don't have in the city, so that would be really nice to be able to add that in. If the grading requires an amphitheater, the informal one, I think, is going to be just fine. We don't need the big formal one. And then lastly, I think it's important to have that link to the retail. So the cafe tables and whatnot is important to help fill the occupancy of the retail locations and just have something where they say, yeah, this is a good place to be if they're deciding where to locate a business as opposed to some of the neighboring communities. So that's my feedback.
I did hear passive numerous times. The quote amphitheater doesn't have to be in programmed amphitheater. It could be a passive native trees and just a nice slope.
Yeah, exactly.
That gives shade and it feels soft and natural.
Yeah, so the informal one looked, if you're going to do that, just kind of blend it in as opposed to looking like it's ready for a school play.
Great feedback, thank you.
So on the Quarry Point, you have an option on that? Are you looking for feedback on that?
No, we're working with the Dakota County Greenway and parks just to, really, there's not a lot of options there. We're gonna have 2 trails through the park. You're gonna have the park users, concessions, baseball kids, soccer families, and then you really almost have a separate trail separating the Greenway that's better marked. It'll have their wayfinding and then it'll wind through there. Once you start adding pavement, there'll have to be some stormwater things and there's some regulatory stuff will blend in and meet what Dakota County would like. But that portion will be helping supplement what's there. And then we had some concepts. We weren't looking for feedback on that, but we had proposed some bike amenities that the county really wanted. That was near the ball fields and building and some stuff like that. So the one common thing that we're seeing from the county, is the Greenway Trail bike amenity nodes, bike fix-it station, benches, waste receptacles, fountains, signage are almost on every corner that we build. So Johnny Cake has I call it a kidney bean up on Johnny Cake and McAndrews. It's a red kidney bean with all the wayfinding, plantings, benches, receptacles, fix-it stations, same thing at the zoo. We want to continue that theming.
What is a bike fix-it station?
Yeah, good question.
It's just it's a place you can pump up your tire, you can hang your bike and fix it if you have to fix a flat tire.
It's got wrenches on it.
Yeah,
on
wrenches,
chains,
tools.
and it's got
It's
a bike
common.
pump.
Very
Yeah.
popular in the biker, that people that bike. If you have to do any little work, they place them all over. Yeah.
With amenities, again, with the Greenway Trail, is there restrooms? Are people going to be going up and, because I would hate to have, hopefully they go up and they buy something at the restaurants and then use the facilities there, but along the trail.
I don't have that map here. The county does have a map with the overall Greenway.
Okay.
And there are places where there are parks that have restroom facilities with different hours of operation. Quarry Point Park has facilities. East Lake Community Park in Lakeville, the southern closest to this one, has a restroom facility. Johnny Cake has restroom facility. I believe at the zoo
At the
going in
activity center.
Lebanon, there's multiple trailheads with facilities. So they're fairly well placed.
Okay.
But there are going to be segments, say from here, as we develop the trail up through the mining area, through Menards and the new development by Abdallah, Johnny Cake Ridge Park, as we start to finalize the alignment, those sort of things will, how far you are from restrooms will play into that final alignment.
Okay.
I keep seeing water fountains. Are those bottle filling stations or actual water fountains? I mean, post-COVID,
Yeah, I would recommend, right now they have, it's a combination, like you can get a combination one, but, yeah. The bottle
county has been going to a standard where they use the dog, the water bottle, and the human drinking portions. People walk dogs on it.
Oh, sure.
So we have been seeing an increase in those sort of filler stations.
Okay.
I like that.
And water could be available. It's not available today, but we did put utilities ready to go for development. So when it comes and we know that that's an amenity feature, we'll make sure we get it there. This is part of the reason for the planning.
This is quite a project. It's really exciting.
How big is this space again?
I don't
You know
think
what?
I've ever.
I don't know if I dimensioned it either.
Roughly.
It's probably the size of this room.
Small.
It's not big space. You know, the bridge isn't real big. The span is relatively short across the two stormwater ponds, and I would say slightly bigger than this room is all getting, you know, it's sloped, and you're down in 10 feet lower than the retail buildings, and the trail meanders through there really nice, and you do have great views, north and south from this location. Whether you're up high or down low, it is nice views. It's not a real big space.
We're used to playing with a little bit bigger.
And it's hard to program a lot of stuff in a small slope space, but tying it into this greenway and the retail, a lot can happen here. And it is exciting.
All right, any other comments? Do you have enough from us? Is this,
Yeah, I think so.
Eric and Mike?
Sounds good.
Yeah, wonderful feedback, good dialogue, thank you.
Thank you.
all right,
very
well,
much.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
So even like the diagonals would be small.
Right.
Small.
So again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, so Brandon and the architect will go back, take your feedback, and kind of create a little bit of a hybrid plan. They'll also be getting some feedback from the planning commission, and then develop a plan that will be presented to the city council, and ultimately they'll give final approval.
Good.
And that's hoped to happen in the next 30 to 60 days. Is that correct, Brandon? Or sooner than that?
That's about the timeline.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's talk about the skate park open house.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you remember a family or a group of people coming to the Parks Committee a number of months ago and saying, hey, can we update and improve the skate park facilities that we have in our community? And we said that we would hold an open house to see what type of an interest there was within the community. And so that's what this event is designed to try to help us do. And so it's planned for Saturday, August 20th from 1 to 3. It'll be held at our current skate park, which is modular skate park equipment at the Johnny Cake West hockey rinks right near the activity center. And so there's going to be lots of things going on that day to hopefully attract people to come and use the facility and give us feedback about what they would like to see in the future. And then ultimately, we'll take that feedback and likely incorporate it into a potential parks bond referendum. And so that's what we're trying to do, is just get feedback and find out what kind of support there might be in the community for a different kind or an improved skate park, if you will.
You said from 1 to 3, right?
From 1 to 3 on Saturday, August 20th at Johnny Cake West, where the skate park is, equipment is right now, which is inside one of the hockey rinks.
Okay, and then Eric, did you want to talk about the park tour recap?
Yeah, so last month, the Parks Committee went around and as some members of the community may know, that we are exploring the possibility of a future parks bond referendum. And as a part of that process, we have picked 4 parks in our park system: Alamagnet, Redwood, Farquhar, and Kelly Park, to kind of update and or redo the master plans for those parks. So the Parks Committee took some time to review the concepts that have been developed based on resident feedback. And so we'll be putting those plans up on up on our website here in September to get more specific community feedback. So instead of dreaming, it's going to be more reaction to what we put on paper, if you will. Our goal is then to develop one plan for each park, and then keep that moving forward as part of the potential future parks bond referendum.
And again, what's the rough timing to have that one plan, the condensed plan for each park?
Yep, so the 2 plans will go on the website in mid-September. We'll leave it on there for 4 to 6 weeks and collect comments. We'll take those comments and then create the one plan. It'll be back on the website in November, and along with a host of other projects, cost estimates, tax implications will be on our website end of November, December, so people can look at it, educate themselves about what the different possibilities are. so that they can then give us feedback about how they feel about a future Parks Bond referendum and whether they support it or possibly don't support it.
Wonderful. Yeah, we were all on that tour, and I thought it was excellent. It was, that was really well done, well organized.
Very good.
Okay, so 5E is division updates. Did you actually want to present, or?
Do you, I know that our golf course manager has some slides that he wants to present, so he can get keyed up. But I don't know, Mike, if there's anything you want to highlight from a parks perspective?
You know what, I might, I know that Mark had had some questions about tonight. I can go up there and go ahead and do. Pull some photos up on that? I just wanted to show them where we're at.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that we've been working on in our park maintenance division. If you bear with me for a minute, I'm going to rifle through and get to that quickly. But I think one of the biggest highlights, I mean, our routine summer things that we're working on, our ongoing turf maintenance, which has slowed considerably because of the lack of rain, which has given us some opportunities to work on some of our smaller projects. As I think that all of you are aware that we've had some struggles with some seasonal staff and filling that. So the lack of rain has actually created an opportunity for us. You can see here a laundry list of duties that we've done. I don't need to necessarily go through them. You can see what we've been working on throughout our summer. I think one of the biggest highlights that of interest that I know that member Mark Shuri had asked about is the dock over at Farquhar, and we've made some significant progress on that. And actually, we're ready to hook up the gangway by probably the end of tomorrow, so it should be completed by tomorrow. So this picture that is shown here at the bottom shows you we were in the construction process at that point as when I sent the information in, and as of now, we've got all of the sections in except for the gangway to approach the dock itself. So we made some good headway on it. We'll be driving the pipe in, securing it completely. It's going to be a great addition down to Farquhar. It's been quite some time, but we've worked hard to get this pulled together. So it'll be an interesting attraction down in that area. So that's basically about it. Like I say, some of the updates, the things that we're doing, we've got some staffing updates. Steve Marsh started as a park maintenance 1. He's had 14 years of experience in the automotive industry, a great addition to our team that fills our full-time staff out. And as I mentioned earlier, we struggled this summer with seasonal staff with about 50% of what we actually needed. Hopefully, we've got some younger people that have come in, and hopefully we can bring them back in next year and add to that. Some upcoming stuff that we're working on yet. We've got a summer field sign to complete yet, and some items yet to finish up on the pickleball courts. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
I just have one, Mike.
Sure.
The restrooms at Johnny Cake West,
Yes?
are they ever going to be open, or
They are open, yes.
they're locked?
They should be open by 8 o'clock in the morning.
I was there today. I was there a week
Okay.
ago, and they're
Okay,
locked.
if there's a malfunction, thanks for letting me know.
And the only reason I bring that up is somebody at the pickleball courts was complaining they were having to go into the Johnny Porter thing, and they really weren't excited about it. I was gonna say, well, why don't you go over to these, but they're locked.
Okay,
Today they were locked, and last week they were locked.
okay, thanks for bringing that up. We'll take a look at that right away.
Okay.
I know that we had some vandalism recently, and the maintenance staff had to lock them to repair it. I just want to make sure that if we're finished up with that they do get opened up, so thank you for that. Any other
And maybe if that's taking place, maybe put a sign up saying locked for repairs.
Sure, exactly.
Put a sign up at the pickleball court saying if you really wanna go to an indoor restroom, just walk across the parking lot.
Okay, I'll make note of that and make sure we get on that tomorrow.
I
Thank
think
you.
there's some people who would appreciate that, I know.
Right. Okay.
And Mike, can you just talk a little bit about the dog parks? As far as what's your experience now as far as maintenance and usage and?
You know, on the maintenance side of it, it's been pretty minimal. We usually visit the site twice a week, to pick up debris or whatever might be there. We mow, generally, if we'd have a decent, rain, precipitation, we'd probably mow every other week, depending upon dog traffic that might be in there. So we're not doing a lot of that either lately, but that's what I anticipated. Really been very minimal maintenance. And I've had a lot of good feedback from the user groups that are using them. I mean, in my opinion, it's been a good success for the user groups that are out there. It's kind of a compromise, because we don't have the property to really make a large dog park. So it's been, very successful, in my opinion, for the user groups.
Do you have any, do you have any estimates on usage levels between the two?
You know, during the day, we have a lot of routine users. I mean, you take a segmented time from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock, there might be 3-4 typical users that go in. In the evenings, I can't say for certain, not being on site, but I'm imagining there's probably a little more use during that time. But if I were to estimate on an average day, there might be 5 to 10 users, something like that. Weekends might be a little bit different as well. But I think that they are getting some use, but not heavily.
And they're both being used about the same, would you think?
Yes.
And again, living by Delaney, walking our dog, and there's usually somebody in there. Again, I'm seeing as we're walking our dog a little bit later because it's cooler, other people are doing the same too. So it seems like there is some usage at night or those evening hours. So I can't say about the other park, except when I drive by, I do see people in there with their dog.
Yeah, what I've experienced is there are frequent, usual users, so to speak.
All right, anything else for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, next we got Brian from our arenas, got a little bit of an update.
Okay.
And we'll save the best for last.
Mr. Chair, committee members, thank you for having me tonight. Brian Christensen, Arena Manager. Just wanted a quick update for you guys here tonight. We did do a big flooring project over at Hayes right before the start of the summer hockey training program stuff. We replaced all of the public use rubber, so everything except our office. We replaced so walkways around the rink, locker rooms, bathrooms, and lobby, and it's really changed the look of the building, and people are really loving it. It looks great. Come on over, stop by, take a look at it whenever you guys get a chance. Coming up, we do have a consignment sale going on, started tonight at the sports arena. It's a mostly kids consignment sale, thousands of, kind of garage sale items, clothing and everything for sale. Over there right now, they did a donut truck today out front, and tomorrow during the day, they'll have a cookie dough truck for people to buy stuff from during the sale and everything. So they're trying to get people to come in the buildings and everything. And if you want to go, please visit the site. It's egan.jbfsale.com, and that has their tickets on there. I think they're minimal pricing, $1 or $2 to get in the door and do some shopping. Coming up on August 22nd, we start our first fall session of our Learn to Skate program. That's a shorter 6-week session that leads into our longer 8-week sessions that we run during the winter, and that will be at Hayes Park Arena. We also, for the month of August, have public skating at Hayes Arena on Sundays from 2:15 to 3:45, and that's $5 a skater. And we have limited skate rental available for $3 a pair for people to use if they want to. Currently, both hockey associations have their registration open, so if you know anybody looking to play, both associations do very well with the younger groups and getting them in at an affordable cost. So if anybody hasn't tried it before, please reach out to either association and register with them. It helps us out a lot too, to help grow their associations a little bit. We also have our job postings out right now for the arena. We're looking for drivers, ice surfacer drivers for both buildings. And that'll be open until we have enough people. We're still looking for probably 5 or 6 more. So if anybody knows anyone in the public, please apply. We take all. And in a few weeks, we will be posting for our ice guard positions, which are kind of game helpers. They help us during high school events and everything else. And typically those are high school kids. Great first job for anybody to come out to and work for us. So please, if you hear anybody looking for jobs, send them our way. We're always looking. That's all I have for you guys tonight. And then if you guys have any questions.
Are we required to attend the consignment sale if we just want to eat cookie dough?
No, because the
Okay.
food trucks are outside. You do not have to pay to get into the conference sale.
Just
We
checking.
have
I
some
might
cookie
go
dough.
there for lunch.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, now next we'll have our golf course manager, Jim Zink.
You have your entire budget ready, right?
Not quite. Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm Jim Zink, golf course manager. I just wanted to give you an update on a couple of things that went on earlier in the year and let you know that the last 3 months at the golf course have been freaking awesome. So we have been very busy. But I think we, as you guys recall, we had part of our fee structure this year, we had eliminated the kind of freewheeling youth on course program. Youth on course players can still play at the discounted rate as long as they're playing with an adult. But in conjunction with that, we offered basically a $200 junior season pass. We sold over 40 of those passes. All those kids attended kind of an orientation and a care for the course. They met our superintendent, and that has been a huge success. The parents love it. The kids love it. We've actually getting to know a lot of the kids. So that has been really, really good. The other thing was early this year, we did experience some, say, a lot of nighttime traffic on the golf course from some of the neighbors, if you will. And we did have some vandalism on the driving range early this year. That has all ceased. So we still have evidence that there are people out on the property late at night. I guess which is to be expected when you have 190 acres right there, but we have not had any issues or damage or any kind of problem since then. So I just wanted to kind of briefly update you on where we're at here. Through April, March and April almost didn't exist in the golf business this year. We were way behind, and that was with a pretty significant uptick in some rental early in the year. So as of the end of April, we were about $8,000 or $9,000 up in event business, but we're still over $68,000 behind last year's revenue numbers. May, June, July, this is last year compared to this year. As you all know, last year was pretty much record numbers of rounds. And we see that it's now kind of the norm. This year it's very, very similar. Joked with my superintendent that like I think it was one of the last days of June, we had a irrigation break right in front of the first tee. So we had to close the first tee a morning for about 40 minutes. So it's because he didn't get that fixed fast enough, we didn't catch our June numbers from last year. But just the July numbers, that's 220 to 230 players every single day for 31 days. So it has been nuts. The best part of that is a huge increase in monthly revenue. So last July was about a record month for us, $268,000. This year, May, June, July, we're averaging 282. So not only is the tee sheet full, the golfers are spending a little bit more, and we're seeing quite an uptick in event business. Not just the events we're doing, but the inquiries we're getting going forward. So we've been very fortunate. We have a part-time employee that started with us last fall, Kaylee Hughes, and she has really embraced that role and is really doing a great job with growing our event business. So we now find ourselves $23,000 ahead of last year. So it's amazing what 3 months with no rain at the golf course can do for business. So we're very, very encouraged by this, and we expect it to continue. We do know that next year we will have some challenges. Right about this time next year, our irrigation contractor will finally come on site and start the installation of the new pump systems and be out on the golf course here in early August, start installing the irrigation system. I do feel like we built a lot of goodwill and a lot of customer loyalty this year that will hopefully make that impact a little less next year. And here's what we're seeing on the food and beverage side. So last year, as you recall, we took food and beverage back in-house. We had a vendor for, I believe, 3 seasons. We took it back in-house. We hired 13 or 14, 18-year-old kids, and they have been remarkable. So almost all of them came back. We lost a couple. We've added a few additional this year. We now have some of these young ladies actually have become lead attendants for us. And there's a lot of challenges in what we do, but that is one of the great things, but probably the best thing about my job is seeing these 18-year-old kids come in, hardly knowing what to do, and seeing them grow and mature into leadership roles. One of the things also with our food and beverage numbers, these numbers include event, beverage revenue, and some catering commission we get. So we're seeing growth in our day-to-day. A lot of that growth is thanks to Kaylee and the event business growth we're seeing. And this is where we're at. So in April, as I said, we were up about 10 grand in banquet revenue early in the year, so it was pretty flat, but we've really seen steady growth year to date. We're up almost $40,000 just in the food and beverage and event revenue side.
Is that gross or net?
That is gross.
Gross, okay.
Yeah. And then just like I say, we're very fortunate. We have about 50 to 55 part-time seasonal employees. There's a couple of us full-timers in the management side. We have 2 full-time maintenance people. And then we have John Anderson kind of runs our golf operation on a part-time. He's a seasonal employee, PGA member. And then Kaylee with the events. But the part-times, the seasonal staff we've had have just been amazing. And they really have taken ownership and bought into what we do and have really helped the new staff get integrated into what we do. One of the things we do is we can hire kids at 16. So we are obviously looking for more people to bring in the fall. We're losing staff almost on a daily basis at this point. One of our go-tos has been working 40 hours a week. He was just hired full-time as a membership director down at Austin Country Club. So we have another 40-hour-a-week employee that'll be going in a couple weeks. So they're dropping like flies. But we are able to bring kids in at 16 years old. They help with outside service, which is kind of parking carts and picking the driving range and keeping the building clean. But it gives us an opportunity to get them in the door. Then when they turn 18, they can work as food and beverage servers. They can then work in the golf shop because we do sell beer in the golf shop. And then, or they can work down in our maintenance department. So oftentimes we want to get the kids in. They work there a couple years, and we had a really good employee that had been with us a couple years, and he's like, I think I can get more regular hours if I go down to the maintenance department and get up and come into work at 5 in the morning. And yes, in fact, you can get more consistent hours. So, so we are looking for help. If you know anybody, please send them our way. That's kind of it. That's where we're at. I'll have much more information, obviously, in a couple months. But the last 90 days have just been awesome.
Do you have the expense with figures year to date, or?
Well, these we get out of our point of sale. We get those a few weeks behind. We're just getting into where we're actually getting ahead. We're typically in the red all the way through May, till as the revenue starts increasing. We did have a couple of additional expenses this spring in preparation for some of the projects we're doing. But we are projecting that we will finish well into the black like we did last year. So we'll get those numbers as we go, and then I'll be able to give you more comprehensive information as we get through the year. One of the other things we're seeing is that some of the things we did on the golf course last winter as part of our projects going forward have been very well received. I don't know if many of you, I know some of you have been out to the property, but the corner of McAndrews and Pilot Knob it's unbelievable how fast they are moving on that senior housing project there. And that seems to be quite shocking to our golfers, having that property open like that. But the work we've done on the golf course has been very, very well received. So we're really optimistic, like I say, that we're really building some loyalty in our clientele. We know there's going to be some disruption late next year, but we're hoping we can get ahead of that.
I think those food and beverage figures are wonderful.
Yeah, staff's just been awesome. And, and we knew this, our vendor, a private vendor, they did their best, but it's hard. They can't be as, I guess, dynamic as we can in knowing when the golfers will be there. And when we don't have the liquor license, it really makes it difficult, so.
How are you looking for bookings for events?
Growing rapidly. We just met this morning to talk about, and really after the COVID years, we wanted anything we could get, we'd book it. And we met this morning and talked about we will not take grad parties until we get a couple months before a grad party. So we're trying to hold dates further out. We had a number of grad parties this spring. Some of those people that attended then called us, hey, what about next Saturday and beginning of June next year? And we're just saying, hey, we can't book that until we get past the first of the year, because if we get a call for a wedding, we want that event. So it's growing exponentially. So we'll have more information on that too. That was part of our meeting today, was to have Kaylee kind of go through and lay them out and what kind of events we're getting. And some of the smaller ones, we're tweaking a little bit how we're doing our catering fee and things, where normally we get 10% from the caterer. We found going through this year that grad parties, for example, and some of those types, they would just as soon bring in, have Jersey Mike's or Jimmy John's do it. So trying to get commission from that is very difficult. So that was what we talked about this morning. We're just going to have, here's a fee. You just pay us the $150 and you can bring that food in for events. And we like having those kind of events. But when you operate a full bar, there's other events that are much more profitable for us, so.
Hey, Jim, earlier this year, you had an event out on the patio where you hired a musician. What was that a successful event?
Yeah. We don't make a lot of money on it, but it's one of those opportunities to try to get some, maybe what we would call non-traditional clientele out. We're also worked this year with the rec department, and they had a bags league there. Some of the neighbors were coming over for that. We maybe made a little bit of money on that music on the patio, but the point of it is to try to get some non-traditional users out there, and it has highlighted our desperate need for patio furniture. So we have been discussing that as part of our kind of capital plan going out.
As part of that capital plan, is there thought of getting recorded music that can be played out there, as opposed to just deathly silence?
Yes, that would be very nice. Without going too far into the weeds, our AV system is, I mean, seems like the building's pretty new, but it's, 11, 12 years old, and that really could use an upgrade. And
You could hire me to sing if you want to. I'll just go out there and just sing all
prefer
afternoon.
to have somebody that would actually drive business to us.
To us.
I thought I'd just
you'll
offer
drive
that,
business, but possibly in the wrong
Community
direction.
service.
Yes, yes.
So would you be able to then put that into the capital plan as something to?
It's something that we continue to talk about, and it's an expensive proposition, but we're looking at other options too. We have some portable capabilities for when we have weddings that are like up in the picnic shelter, and things like that, where we'll provide some of that. So the whole AV system is a substantial expense, but we have talked about trying to provide a little more, let's say, ambiance in that area.
How about just a simple, Sonos system? I mean, those aren't terribly expensive.
Right. You have to be careful when you're playing music in a
ASCAP.
when in a business, so.
You have to pay ASCAP. You have to pay.
Fines are bad.
So as long as it's very much under the radar, people don't seem to have a problem. But when you go to a full system and things like that, you just have to be cognizant of being an enterprise operation. You can do that on your patio, but they can't do that at the restaurant patio.
That's why Muzak is still in business.
Yes, sir. Anything else? Awesome.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Eric, there are any announcements that you wish to make?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I guess I want to spend maybe just a minute and say thank you. And I want to say thank you to Doreen. I think many of you know that Doreen next week is going to be her last day with the city after 37 years of service. And it's not just service, it's been exceptional service. And there's been a lot of growth in the city of Apple Valley, and Doreen's been a part of that. She has kept a lot of staff people prior to myself and prior to some of the other people that are sitting here, making sure that they had what they needed and they did what they needed to do so that we were in a good spot to keep doing it. And there's been a lot of successful park projects that Doreen's been a part of. There's been a lot of successful events that Doreen's been a part of. There's been a lot of successful recreation programs that Doreen's been a part of. And so I just want to say thank you to Doreen and for all that she's meant to Parks and Recreation and to the city of Apple Valley. There's no way we could have done it without her. So thank you, Doreen.
Here, here.
Thank you.
And she will definitely be missed.
It's been a pleasure, you guys. Working with the committee, with the staff, it's outstanding. Can't say enough good things about the whole city, so thank you. Appreciate it.
So items for future meetings. Do we need to discuss that now, or?
So that item's just always on the agenda in case one of the Parks Committee members has something that you want us to put on a future agenda. So if there's a topic or an item that you want to discuss, let us know, and depending on what it is, we'll bring it to the next meeting or maybe a couple meetings from now, depending on what the topic
Right.
is.
What's the best way to discuss the two items that were brought to our attention this evening?
We will do some research on both of those topics, and when we feel like we have enough information, we'll bring it back to a future Parks Committee meeting.
I might have something. Mike might be able to mention or answer this right now. If not, next meeting. What are the plans for? I mean, when's the next buckthorn removal? I mean, that came up today. I know we have, that's kind of a unsung impromptu event sometimes.
Well, as you are all aware, I think it's one of those tasks that utilizes larger groups of people and consumes a bunch of time. So basically, at any point that I have volunteer groups that come in, I'll have them address some certain areas. And frankly, the attention that it needs, it doesn't get because of the lack of staff. But I think it's always something that is in the back of my mind. If I have a larger group that comes in, I'll send them in a direction to try and clean some areas up. It's a struggle, continuing struggle throughout the system itself. But I don't necessarily have on my agenda for the crews to attack these. They're more directed toward volunteer groups when I get them.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll volunteer my boys. They'll love that.
Okay, anything else? So in that case, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave Freed, seconded by Noel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.